everyone, Exacto here. We are back for the next deck in our A to Z Riftbound Challenge series. We finished up yesterday with our Ari deck, and today we have the next deck in our series, which is, drumroll please, Annie. Annie is our next deck, and compared to our previous one, she is a more popular, or at least more powerful meta choice when it comes to tournaments. So, just as we did with Ari, let's take a look first at the Annie legend, see if we can get an idea of what Annie is wanting to do with her deck. So, Annie was a champion that was actually not in any of the box sets, being Origins, Spirit Forged, or Unleashed released thus far. The only way you could get your hands on an Annie card is if you bought the Riftbound Proving Grounds box set, which included 4 decks, 4 unique champions in there, one of which was Annie here. Now, Annie, from the time of her inception, has been a popular meta choice, and her legend ability will give you an indication why. So first off, let's take a look at her colors. She is Red Fury and Purple Chaos, 2 very powerful colors that give you an access to a suite of really powerful cards and options to play. But her legend ability says, at the end of your turn, ready 2 runes. Now that requires no investment, and it means you have access to more energy on your opponent's turn. You can tap out on turn 1 and play your 2-drop, or you can tap out on turn 2, play a 2-drop, and then untap at the end of the turn and still have a runic energy up for any of the instant speed spells that Annie would want to play. And that leads me to my point here. Annie wants to be playing spells or have access to spells in her deck that can be played on the opponent's turn. So let's take a look at her chosen champion. Most often, when it comes to Annie, they choose, when it comes to tournament choices, they choose the purple version, Annie Stubborn, to be their chosen champion unit. And Annie Stubborn is a 4 energy, 1 power unit that gives you 3 might, but says when you play me, return a spell from your trash to your hand. Again, more evidence that she wants to be playing a lot of reaction or action speed spells. Play Annie, you get one of those back. You can continue making use of her 2 energy that she gets to untap at the end of every turn on the opponent's turns. So, when we look at the meta list, we'll see that even though I said Annie's a more popular or more viable meta choice, she still is not super high on the list when it comes to tournament performances, I guess. You see she's down near actually the 1% range that Ari was in previously. However, Annie has a 55% win rate, which may be buoyed up by one outlier player, which we will talk about right now. When it comes to tournament finishes, anybody who's familiar with the Riftbound player scene knows that Annie means prismaticism. Prismaticism is not only easily the best Annie player in the world, he is also generally one of the best Riftbound players currently playing right now, and he likes to play Annie. He brings her to every tournament. He typically does very well with her, and that is where we're going to start when it comes to finding a deck list to use for our A to Z challenge here. What we are looking at right now is the deck list that Prismaticism brought to RQ Hartford recently, back on the 20th of June 2026, and he ended up finishing 7th with this deck list. So let's see where he went with his card choices here. Again, he had the purple Annie as his choice, and of course his legend was Annie that lets him untap 2 runes at the end of every turn. He is playing a total of 24 units, so this particular version of the deck is quite unit heavy. So let's see what he's playing. He's playing 3 copies of Inferna, 2 copies of Overzealous Fan, and 3 copies of Traveling Merchant. Now those are 3, so 8 2-drops. Nothing really out of the ordinary here when it comes to red-purple players. They like to play Overzealous Fan to make it difficult for opponents to win combat against them. You kill this unit, you remove their attacker from that particular base of which they're attacking. Traveling Merchant gives you a lot of card draw, and you see with Annie's ability to pick things up from the graveyard, that discard 1 to draw 1 might actually work in your favor at some point in the game. And Inferna, she is a 2-drop that attacks as a 3-drop, but also she has that ambush keyword, so you have the option of attacking with something smaller like the Overzealous Fan or the Traveling Merchant, and then for two energy here, you bring in Inferna, and all of a sudden you are winning the combat as opposed to something that may not be as favorable for you on that board state. Keeping with the ambush theme, we see in the 3-drop spot Grim Apothecary as well as Rengar Pouncing. Now, starting with Grim Apothecary, that is a 3 energy, 3 might unit. No runic power involved. I like that a lot. When you play me, you may return a friendly unit at a battlefield to its owner's hand. Very nice that if you attack in, you play your Inferna on turn 1, and then on turn 2, you attack with the Inferna, presumably to take that battlefield. Your opponent will then have the opportunity to attack on their turn when Inferna is no longer a 3 might unit, she's just a 1 might unit. You ambush in Grim Apothecary, you return that Inferna to your hand, and all of a sudden the opponent, instead of facing a 1 might unit, they are facing a 3 might unit now. So useful for saving Inferna, possibly useful for saving other units here as well. He is also playing Rengar Pouncing. It has the ambush keyword before ambush was a keyword. So this is an origin card that says that bottom line of text, I can be played to a battlefield you're attacking, ambush. So again, it has reaction speed going along with the ambush thing, and assault 2. So he is a 3 energy, 1 might unit that attacks as a 5 might unit. Very big, again, if you're attacking in on turn 2 with one of your 2-drop guys, you can flash in or ambush in Rengar, and all of a sudden you are taking that battlefield. Going along, this is par for the course for all red decks. They like to play Kai'Sa, and why not? What's not to like about her? 4-drop, 4 might unit. For an extra 1 and a red power, she comes in ready, and when she conquers, she draws 1. There's a reason she's currently $60 listed on this Rift deck list. Every red deck wants Kai'Sas. They love to get the card advantage from her, and she's just a very powerful unit on her own right. Nox is Hopeful. Again, this is another typical red unit. When you play one of the cheaper Annie spells, you can then follow it up with Nox is Hopeful, and you get a 4 might unit onto the board at a discount. Vex Apathetic. This is I'll say new, even though she's not that new anymore. This is a unit from Unleashed that really puts a stop to all of the powerful ambush units that your opponent might be playing. Your opponent has access to red cards like Rengar, Grim Apothecary, Inferna. Vex shuts those down, as well as shutting down the orange Rengar unit. Very powerful unit. Typically, all or most purple decks are playing at least 1 or 2 copies of this Vex. And then Ferris Forerunner. The top end of the deck, 6 might, 6-drop for 1 power. When it dies, you get 2 mech units. Very difficult card to deal with, since you get value on the back end of when it takes a battlefield, your opponent takes it back. Well, you get 2 3 might guys at the base ready to attack them next turn. Now we'll get into the spells. Now, given that Annie untaps 2 runes at the end of every turn, that does give her options if she needs to play her ambush units when the opponents move in on battlefields. But typically, these ambush units are better on offense than they are defense, with maybe the exception of Grim Apothecary. So when the opponent is playing, what do you want to have access to make it so you have an advantageous position in that point of the game? And we start with 3 copies of Longsword for 2 energy and 1 red power. This equipment comes in and has the quick draw ability, meaning you play it and it automatically slots onto a unit. So you can untap those 2 runes at the end of turn. Opponent moves in, trying to take a battlefield from your traveling merchant with their 2 might or 3 might guy. You play Longsword, all of a sudden they are no longer winning that combat unless they have some tricks of their own. We also have access to 2 copies of Cleave in this list. This card will allow us to take battlefields more easily, obviously, giving us the assault keyword for 1 power. We get 3 extra might on our unit while they're attacking. But the big one is Stack Deck. We want access to Stack Deck on the opponent's turn, meaning when they start a showdown and we get that action window open, we can play our Stack Deck. We can look at the top 3 cards of our deck and take whatever one is most advantageous to us in a situation. It is very good for filtering through your deck and finding exactly what you might need at any particular time. Cards like Stack Deck are decision points where better players know exactly, either through experience or through sheer talent, they know what they're looking for at any particular time. Stack Deck gives you an option to find what you need and have those decision points where better players can eke out some percentage towards winning in their favor. 1 copy of Abandoned. If an opponent is requiring on a big spell to turn the tide of a battle, Abandon will buy you a turn to remove that spell as it bounces to their hand, and then you also get a little predict. You get a little deck control action on the back end of it. But my big thing, and this was from Annie's Proving Ground set, is you get access to 3 copies of Flash. Now, Annie will untap 2 runes again at the end of her turn, and Flash for 2 energy. You can move up to 2 friendly units to base. So, as we have seen with cards like Rengar Pouncing and Inferna, and maybe other cards in the deck here, they are very good at attacking. A card with Cleave, for example, is very good with attacking, but when it comes to defense, those bonus stats do not do much of anything. So isn't it nice to have access to, basically for free, with Annie's Untap 2 Runes ability, the ability to remove your units from the battlefield, put them back at your base, and say, I live to fight another day. I'm going to take advantage of these offensive-oriented spells or units, and I'm going to retake those battlefields on your turn, on my turn, once you're done taking these over on yours. I find that very useful, and I think that's going to be a big performer in these upcoming matches, this particular card, Flash. She also plays 1 copy of Hard Bargain if an opponent's playing a spell or an impactful spell and you want to tax their mana or outright counter it. Hard Bargain, great counter spell. And then the big MVP spell from Unleashed, Starcrossed, bounce a unit back to your hand while they bounce a unit back to theirs, and you can take something like Inferna that again is not doing much on defense. You can return Inferna to your hand while returning whatever they are attacking with, to make it so your offensive oriented cards are going to be better served attacking the next turn, while the Starcrossed removes their attack for this turn. An interesting suite of spells, I would say. I think I'm most interested in both Flash and Starcrossed, seeing how the 2 free mana from Annie will really impact games with those 2 spells in particular. Battlefields, 3 battlefields. Very, very standard for all Annie players. Seat of Power. When you conquer here, draw one for each other battlefield you or allies you control. This is typically the game one play. You want access to card draw. When you are attacking with your units, maybe you can get both battlefields and score a card draw out of something. Arena's greatest. This is Annie is an aggressive deck, so she wants to end the game quicker. So when she is going first and she is being the aggressor, this is the battlefield they typically play. Arena's greatest. Makes it so each player starts at one, basically shortens the game by 1 point. And being the aggressive deck, you want to take advantage of that by ending the game quicker. And then Zon Warrens, this is the go second deck, or go second battlefield of choice. When you conquer here, discard one, then draw one. Kind of filter through your deck when you're on defense to find the cards that you need, and also maybe put some cards in the graveyard for Annie to pick up later when she plays on her turn. 5 Chaos, 7 Fury, and the sideboard here is a one-of sideboard. So if I could imagine what Prismaticism was thinking here, he has specific plans for each one of these cards when it comes to what matchups he's looking to bring them in on. Factory Recall and Thermo Beam. Obviously, these are Thermo Beam used for Azir that plays multiple gears. Factory Recall probably used against a deck like Aurora, where you have one impactful gear that you really want to take out, though. Abandoned, another copy of Abandoned if the opponent is playing a deck that relies on a big impactful spell to turn the game around. Having access to another copy of Abandoned can be very useful. Against the Odds to stop aggro decks. Rebuke to remove maybe decks that want to put a lot of investment into one unit in particular, maybe something like Aurelia or Ornn, maybe, to bounce that back to their hand, even though that is a high power cost attached to the Rebuke spell. Switcheroo, again, also if they attack your battlefields with one really big unit, Switcheroo can turn the tides in your favor by swapping the powers. Another copy of Starcross to bring you up to 3. And then Kha'Zix's Mutating Horror, just a powerful creature card. I would be lying if I said I knew offhand what I would want to bring this in, but if I'm facing a deck that maybe attacks in alone with creatures a lot, Kha'Zix might be attractive to put into your list. So I am really looking forward to playing with this deck. I enjoyed my time with Ari, but I want to get to playing. I really want to play with the purple cards because purple is really a powerful color in this game. So I will be playing, again, 5 matches with the Annie deck. We'll keep track of our results and hopefully see if we can do maybe a little better than we did with Ari. Again, thank you as always for watching. Catch me in the next video and we will play our first match with this Annie deck.